Hello, welcome to my channel. If you're new to the channel, there'll be links at the end of this video for other videos to watch and also if you'd like to subscribe. Continuing in the book of Joshua. On this map here, you can see what Canaan looked like prior to Joshua entering the land. Some of the tribes that were defeated you'll be able to see in other videos. So the Moabites, the Edomites, the Canaanites, the Jebusites, the Hittites, all these tribes having to be defeated so that Joshua could possess the land. God wasn't bothered that these tribes were obliterated because they worshipped their own gods. They had their own false idols and didn't worship the true God. Here we have the allocation of the land to the 12 tribes of Israel after Joshua and the Israelites had defeated all the tribes mentioned on the other map. There'll be a video link will come up to explain what I mean by the 12 tribes of Israel. The original 12 tribes included Levi, and as has been explained in another video, Levi never were allotted any land to own. So because they were one of the 12 tribes, in order to make up the allocation of land to 12 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim, who were the sons of Joseph from his marrying an Egyptian woman, they were adopted by Joseph's father Jacob and given a blessing, so they had a right to have some allocation of land as his adopted sons. So they can be seen as half tribes. So Manasseh and Ephraim make up one whole, being given half the land each, so that there we have the 12 tribes. The Levites weren't given any land because their whole life was devoted to looking after the tabernacle, looking after everything to do with the altar, setting up all the functions for worshipping God at the tabernacle. But they were given some land to pasture their livestock and also some cities to live in. Now, the tabernacle that they had been carrying around with them in the wilderness in order to worship God, once they'd settled in the land of Canaan, the tabernacle was erected in a place called Shiloh. Now, whilst the Israelites were all settling into their located land, it looked for a moment that there was going to be some trouble between some of the tribes of Israel. The tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built what was called an altar of witness near where they lived, so they could worship God. The other tribes of Israel came down from the north and were very angry with them, saying, didn't they realize doing what they were doing could have terrible consequences because as was seen in other videos, if people didn't worship God exactly how God had said, severe punishment would follow. But the tribe of Reuben, Gad, and half-tribe Manasseh explained that they wanted to build an altar of witness where they could give sacrifice and thanks to God because of the problems of geography to where the tabernacle was situated. It was far from them, and they were at the other side of the River Jordan, and they felt isolated where they were, and they also thought the future generations who God had told them to tell the story of them coming out of the wilderness. God had told us all that we had to pass on our history to our families, to our generations. The covenant was for all of us, and because we cannot get to the tabernacle, I don't want our families to think that we aren't part of the promise, part of God's covenant. So this is why we've made an altar here. Now, if God were to be angry with the altar of witness, God would definitely punished the tribes who made it. But he didn't. The other tribes understood why they had made this altar of witness and were happy and left them to it. And no punishment ever came, so God actually blessed this altar of witness for those who were far from the tabernacle. Joshua gave a final warning before his death, for he was now a very old man. Joshua brought all the elders of the tribes together and told them how God had given them this land, the land he promised to their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this land they must protect forever. Any enemies that came against them would be thwarted, for God was with them always. They must, however, always keep the commandments of God. If they were to fall away from God, marrying to other tribes that were not of Israel, then they would suffer consequences. They must turn away from ever following an idol. They must remain faithful to God, who had remained faithful to them, even in their stubborn and disobedient times. Choose who you are to serve, said Joshua. They could either serve the living God or serve a false god. The choice was theirs. Joshua took a stone and placed it as a memorial, a reminder that they had promised to serve the living God. Not long after, Joshua died. He was 110 years old. Joshua was buried in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Gaash. So how does God point us to Jesus in this story? Joshua and Jesus have shared names. Joshua is the Hebrew equivalent of the Greek name Jesus. Both Joshua and Jesus means the Lord saves. When we come on and study more and more of Jesus in the New Testament, we'll see how when Jesus is born, he is named Jesus because he saves people from their sins. Joshua saved Israel from physical enemies and led them into the earthly promised land, and Jesus saves people from sin and leads them to eternal life. Joshua acted as a deliverer when he saved Rahab, who was not a godly woman, but understood the power that the Israelites had from the Lord their God. And because of her faith, Joshua saved her and her family. And Jesus is the ultimate deliverer who saves all who turn to him in faith. Now, the book of Joshua is about securing the land so God's people could have rest from war. Now, although Joshua was able to secure the land for God's people, they weren't going to have ultimate rest, otherwise there would be no point of Jesus. in a book called the Book of Hebrews. It speaks of Jesus providing the true spiritual rest for believers. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying the videos, and hopefully I'll see you on another one. Bye for now.